to Hydesville, where beginnings never end. Not when we pay tribute to the place it all began. Spirit manifested with those legendary knocks. Frightful things to witness for our Kate and Maggie Fox. Kate and Maggie's struggles put a strain upon their youth. Still the spirits told them time to demonstrate the truth. We don't have to fear death, for our spirit will live on. This is our foundation and the music for our song. Follow me to Hydesville and we'll give a silent prayer, showing that we're grateful for the things that started there. Knowing that we don't die helps to show us how to live. Shining love and healing and the power to forgive.
Andrew Jackson Davis, known as the father of modern American spiritualism, prophesied and wrote on the morning of March 31st, 1848. About daylight this morning, a warm breathing passed over my face, and I heard a voice, tender and strong, saying, "Brother, the good work has begun. Behold, a living demonstration is born." On the evening of the same day, some 300 miles away in Hydesville, New York, the Fox sisters established intelligent communication with the spirit of a peddler, marking the birth of modern spiritualism.
Dear ones, we are gathered today together to proclaim, there is no death. There are no dead. 173 years ago today, March 31st, 1848, the veil was lifted, and 9-year-old Katie Fox and her sister, 11-year-old Maggie Fox, established communication with a deceased peddler, Charles B. Rosno, who died in the very cottage their family was renting. Through this communication, the world had absolute proof that the personality of the individual continues after the separation from their physical body.
We celebrate not only the date of the advent of modern spiritualism, the birth of communication between our two worlds, but with gratitude, we come to honor the Fox family and their sacrifices. Because of the Fox family and the events that took place in the Fox cottage in that small rural hamlet in Wayne County, New York, known as Hydesville, we now know the answer to the age-old question. Where have they gone, those who have left our sight? Spiritualism answers with the understanding that they have merely changed their vibration. Their consciousness remains with those they love. Their spiritual education continues ever forward with eternal progression.
Today, we celebrate and give thanks to the Fox family and to the spirit of the peddler, whose persistence in communicating resulted in proof of the continuity of life.
Over 400 years ago, William Shakespeare said, "What's past is prologue," in his play The Tempest. In the play, several actors suggest that everything that has happened before the past has set the stage for what they felt the future should be. This reminds us that we cannot forget the lessons we have learned from our spiritual history. What was the past that the Fox family had to build on? Well, 155 years ago, The last witch trial took place in May of 1693 in Salem, Massachusetts. Fear of interaction with the spiritual realm had resulted in 19 convicted witches being killed and hanging and other suspects imprisoned. Altogether, 200 people were accused, 30 deemed guilty. Superstition, fear, and darkness ruled the day. Fortunately, spiritualism is not witchcraft.
How brave the Fox family was to be the conduit for spirit communication and to later proclaim these truths to the world. They literally put their lives, their livelihood, their dignity, and their hope for a normal life on the line. They were told if they did their part, the spirits would protect them, and they did. And let us not forget the timing. In the spring of the year, with snow still on the ground, that cold March 31st in Hydesville came a revelation of an eternal spring. The light shone through with the promise of a new era, an era of knowledge, discovery, inspiration, and revelation of spiritual truth, an era of social reforms, abolishment of slavery, equal voting rights for women, prison reform, child labor law reforms, and in spiritualism, the sublime truth that we are all siblings, all equal and part of the divine creative force. In the movement of the new dispensation of spiritualism, women and men led on equal footing.
Spiritualists celebrate every day of the year that we all continue to live and love after the change called death. If there was only one evidential message given to a loved one that restored to them the person they thought was lost, healed them from their wounds of grieving, and renewed in them a sense of hope and joy, then spiritualism would be invaluable. Yet spiritualism has gone far and beyond, having given millions of evidential messages and has changed many lives forever. Each message of proof is a light into the darkness. We are the torchbearers of this light.
And so now, here we are, crossing into the Aquarian age, the inheritors of spirit communication. The torch has been passed to our generation. Where will we be in another 173 years? What is possible is up to our vision. Do we have a clear sight? And if we do, what do we see? This is up to you.
Think about the flight of the first successful airplane of Wilbur and Orville Wright on December 17, 1903, over 100 years ago. At first, only the witnesses believed that a man could fly because they had seen it firsthand. Others had not been there, scoffed, and did not believe. They could not have imagined that commercial jets would routinely fly around the world, or that space travel would be possible. Not only that, they would never have imagined that flight would have taken for granted by our generation. The only people who knew the Wright brothers' airplane had taken flight were the witnesses. And before there were witnesses, there were those with the vision of man taking to the skies in flight. The Wright brothers and others had that vision and brought it to pass.
Now, what is our vision for spiritualism? Maybe in our near future, there will be a melding of quantum physics and scientific research that uses technology to enhance spirit communication. We have invented the telegraph, the telephone, the car phone, the cell phone of today, and computers with more power than NASA, who invented the ultimate flight for humankind by landing a man on the moon. What do you see as the next breakthrough in communication? The spirit phone? A phone which goes beyond 5G to link in the physical and spiritual worlds? Maybe in another 173 years from now, that generation will take for granted that easy communication. What else does your clear sight show you for the future? We see a tearing down of divisive walls and replacing them with a building of bridges, constructing partnerships that build on past progress and create new roads and avenues of expression for spiritualism. Out of the tragedy of the COVID-19 pandemic, worldwide, for spiritualism. Out of the tragedy of the COVID-19 pandemic, worldwide, spiritualists rose to the occasion and abandoned physical travel and instead embraced virtual travel and communion via Zoom. Technology merged with spiritual endeavors has brought us all closer together, even though we are miles apart physically.
Would we have believed a year ago that would be the case today? In such a brief time, the world has changed forever, for the better. And that is what Hydesville Day means for us. An acknowledgement that in just one day, the world has changed forever, for the better. So let's celebrate. Today's celebration was planned by...
Hello, I'm the Reverend Stacy Kapczynski, National Spiritualist teacher from the First Spiritualist Church of West Dallas in Wisconsin.
I am the Reverend Joanne Santanocito from the Attunement Spiritualist Chapel of Hamburg, New York.
I'm Reverend Patricia Horn, National Spiritualist teacher from the Spiritualist Church of Eternal Life in Sabattis, Maine.
My name is James Bay. I'm from Celebrate Life Spiritualist Community in San Francisco, California.
Janice Hamilton from the Church of the Spirit in Chicago.
I'm the Reverend Pamela Bollinger, National Spiritualist teacher from the Summerlin Spiritualist Church of the Comforter in Santa Barbara, California.
Hi, I'm Carol Caesar from the Center for Spiritual Enlightenment in Northern Virginia.
Hi, I'm Ellen Sclaver. I'm from the Center of Spiritual Enlightenment, Northern Virginia.
Hi, I'm Donna Terwilliger from the Center for Spiritual Enlightenment from Northern Virginia.
Hi, I'm Charvon Carlson, National Spiritualist teacher from the First Spiritualist Church of West Dallas, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Across the U.S., we came together to plan the birthday party of birthday parties, the birth of the advent of modern spiritualism. We give thanks to the unseen hands from the spirit world that made this day possible, and to the physical hands across the world that have come together to rejoice and celebrate with us.
It is our sincere hope that worldwide, spiritualists will join our quest to carry the light of spiritualism forward, to pick up where other generations left off, to seek to build a greater unity of spirit, to build not only the spirit foam, but to follow the highest guidance received by spirit. What can we do to move our generation forward? If you don't know, come with us. Take flight to the next mountaintop, where you will have a clear view of the next horizon. Sit in the power of spirit and be a channel to receive the highest and best for all. Receive the spirit vision for our future. In this vision, we see a world healed. We see a generation dedicated to service and listening to the guidance of spirit.
As we stand together on the mountaintop of discovery, let us honor the peddler and the fox family. Like the sunflower turning its face to the sun, We look longingly towards the future, embracing the truth of eternal life. We know we stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us in Hydesville, who are now with us today in spirit. So we raise a toast to the peddler and the Fox family. Today is their day.
Remember, a little farming town named Hydesville. That is where it all began, led by innocent children and God-fearing parents. The march of progress began again in the annals of humankind's enlightenment. Superstition replaced with knowledge, fear replaced by love, darkness replaced by light. Let each of us now carry that light of progress forward as we ask the eternal divine, infinite intelligence, fill us with your light, surround us with your love, connect us to the unseen world above. Envision no boundaries, no division, only one light of spiritualism worldwide.
Welcome to Hydesville Day, a celebration of the advent of modern spiritualism, a worldwide event.
Good morning. We have a few opening addresses. This morning I'd like to introduce the Reverend Mary Brooks. She has been a spiritualist for over 35 years. She is the minister at the Universal Spiritualist Center in Maple Ridge, British Columbia, Canada. She loves the history and the story of Hydesville, the pioneers, and the unfolding of modern spiritualism. She learned that spirit was real and we could communicate with it, and it was an awakening. The purpose she wanted to fulfill was to help others, but really, she's also found help that is given to her to help heal, learn, and grow. Here is her address.
Welcome to Hydesville Day. My name is Mary Brooks. I currently live in Maple Ridge, which is in British Columbia, Canada, just outside of Vancouver. And I am the minister, the current minister of Universal Spiritualist Center. And our legal name is the Western Spiritualist Church of Universal Brotherhood Society. So you can see why we've shortened it a little bit. But I am delighted to be here today to help the celebration of the 173rd anniversary of the Hydesville experience. And as I was giving this some thought, I was thinking about what Hydesville has given us, in the last 173 years. Not just the pioneers and all that they brought us, but what have they given us that has carried on for these 173 years and will carry us forward into the future. And that really is the communication. Because before then, I'm sure people communicated with the spirit world, but through that event, we knew that, or we have been told that, all of the members of the family, the neighbors, the community, travelers, people hearing of it came, and they did work to develop how to understand this intelligence that was trying to communicate with them, the spirit of the peddler. And so they developed, not only through the rapping and the knocks, but they worked with the alphabet and other things. And it was actually, certified. People verified that they had been a part of this day. And so it could not be erased and, just put in the history of some minds, but rather in the history of the books and the countries and really the whole world. And so we have been working on this development of this communication for these 173 years. And we've seen it go through, an evolution. In the beginning, there wasn't as much focus perhaps on the mental mediumship. It was more about physical mediumship, the wrappings, the ectoplasmic forms. And it didn't depend on the knowledge that came through people who perhaps hadn't been educated, and the proof was astounding. And then the educators and the scientists became involved, and so it grew and evolved. It wasn't a religion. It wasn't really a philosophy. It wasn't anything that have evolved over time. And so we've been given this great gift of definitions, of reasons why the legal and the scientific and philosophical worlds have come together in this one place. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking, what is the great gift that sustains us through all of these many years? And for me, that has been the freedom of expression, the freedom to interpret and understand in my own way and work to evolving and having that awareness. And it's come over time. It evolved over time, just like spiritualism has evolved over these 173 years. And if we really think about it, because we always talk about how spirit has been with us since the very beginning of mankind, perhaps even the seed of mankind upon this planet. And so we look at these things, and what has been the gift of spiritualism? The freedom of expression, just like, Jesus said, well, you be yourself, and Buddha and the many spiritual teachers over the years of talking about, the strength and the individuality of the person. And we still have that today. We're still struggling with that in some ways as well. How do we interpret individually and still be a part of this great movement? And that, I believe, comes from the fact that we allow each other to grow individually in our own time and in our own way. And it doesn't matter if you're 20 or 50 or 80. You can still be learning something new all the time, because spiritualism isn't set in stone. It doesn't depend on a dogma. It's allowing us to change and grow as spirit changes and grow how they work. And we know through time that spiritualism has grown, and it isn't just rappings and knockings. Then it was the tape recorder, and now it's the computer and our smartphones and other devices. So spirit is growing and learning and doing things in different ways, and then showing us, and it grows. And I think that's the most wonderful thing. And the other gift I think that we've gotten from spiritualism is understanding about healing, understanding that all of the work, all of these different aspects of spirit that comes through is really about healing. Many people have to work on that self-healing and coming to know self. And as we do that, then we have a greater understanding of our fellow man. And perhaps that is the greatest purpose here on this earth plane in our work with the spirit world, to understand that everything is as it should. There's no coincidence. Everything is as it should be. And that all is well and unfolding just as we have all been a part of the planning. I don't believe for one moment that we are left alone or that we are left to our own devices. I believe that higher self, that spirit that we are and that we continue to be after we leave this body, is at work even now with the teachers and the friends and all of those in the spirit world who help guide our steps, and that we are a part of that, because we are told we are not puppets. Words are not put into our mouths necessarily without our agreement, without our being a part of this great life. What is the talk about the tapestry or anything else if we are not a part of it? All we may not understand in this consciousness in this world is what that part is. But if we understand spiritualism, then we know that everything that we do is really important and is a part of this greater life and this greater lesson, and worth living. This life is worth living to be able to bring whatever it is we need. And you don't need to be a medium to do that. You don't need to have a greater understanding to do that. But as you learn and grow that you are spirit in the here and now, as that awakening happens with us, because that is the whole purpose of healing, isn't it? To awaken the spirit. And however that healing comes to us, through word, through thought, through deed, through some trauma, through some great joy, however that awakening comes, where that curiosity and the questions come from is what's important. I feel the emotion and the great love from the spirit world that we are daring enough to live in this planet, to live at this time, and to go forward. So enjoy this life and the great celebration. That is the celebration of this wonderful day, this anniversary. To know that we are not alone. And that we have the greatest love guiding us. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce David Burton, the president of the SNU. Minister David Burton was elected president of the Spiritualist National Union in the UK in 2010. He chairs the National Executive Committee, who are the trustees and directors of SNU. He is a principal of the Arthur Findlay College, the Barbanel Center, overseeing their work as spiritualist education centers in the UK. Over the last 42 years, he has served many roles on committees throughout the Union, including at church, districts, and national levels, helping to strengthen the administrative basis of the religion. He also conducts religious services, such as the ordination of newly appointed ministers, the dedication of churches, marriages, namings, and funerals. He works closely with the Interfaith Network of the UK and was the first spiritualist to represent the religion alongside other major faith leaders in the UK at the London's Canap of the National Service of Remembrance. As well as representing spiritualism in a wide range of forms, he is also a medium, regularly to be found working throughout the SNU network of 300 churches.
I'm speaking to you from Stansted Hall in England, United Kingdom. The Spiritualist National Union is an organisation established in the UK in the early part of the 20th century. We currently have 300 churches around the UK and affiliated churches and centres around the world. Through SNUI, our work to promote spiritualism internationally continues and encourage people that perhaps don't have the benefits that we have here in the UK of many, many churches to explore, to learn, and to develop their understanding of spiritualism, which helps their lives. The 31st of March is, of course, Hydesville Day. And on this day, on behalf of all of our members and churches, I would like to extend to you, our friends and colleagues in the United States, a very, very warm and good wishes for Hydesville Day 2021. The last year has been without doubt unprecedented in the history of humanity, and we have been challenged in so many ways. But one thing it has taught us is although we haven't been able to physically meet together, we can still worship and share that joy of the knowledge of the spirit world, blending with our physical lives to help people in many, many ways. So as we look forward to the future, I hope we can do so working together for the good of the movement, of the message of spirit, and also for the betterment of humanity as a whole. God bless you, and happy Hydesville Day.
Next, I would like to introduce the Reverend June Schoenfeld Kilmer. She is the daughter of Reverend Ernst and Mrs. Elvira Schoenfeld. Born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, she was active in the Church of the Spirit, where her father was the pastor. She served as the Lyceum teacher and later as a social chairperson. She is a graduate of Northern Illinois University with a Bachelor's of Science in Education and holds a Master's of Arts degree from Northwestern University with a major in Guidance and Counseling. She started out teaching 6th grade, but spent most of her teaching career as a resource specialist in special education. She was married to Edward E. Kilmer, now in the spirit world, and has 2 sons and 4 grandchildren. Edward's employment moved them to California, where she helped charter the Circle of Love Spiritualist community in Auburn, California, and currently serves as their pastor. She is an ordained minister, national spiritualist teacher, and a trustee on the board of directors of the National Spiritualist Association of Churches, where she also serves as the director of the Department of Education. She is a longtime member of the Morris Pratt Institute, America's Spiritualist College, and is currently serving as its president.
1992, Ernst A. Schoenfeld, my father, wrote a preface to Mercy Cadwallader's 1917 book, Hydesville in History. And this is what he said. Spirit communication is tabulated as far back as ecclesiastical history records man's activities in search of the power beyond humans. In everything, there is a beginning. Hydesville is the cradle of modern spiritualism. Out of it came the birth of a new thought, a new and greater understanding of the God concept. New avenues have been opened. Out of the humble cottage came a new dispensation, a new birth. Babylon has fallen. Mystery, the mother of abominations, is slain. And the angel of truth and judgment has sounded the trumpet of victory in the great outpouring of modern spiritualism. Spiritualism does not say good night in the solemn hour of death, but rather gives the glad assurance of a most welcome good morning just across the Crystal River. Spiritualism, while proving a future existence, enlightens the mind, frees it from superstition, and hastens the bringing in of a millennium of peace and brotherhood. The history of spiritualism must be preserved for posterity. All the facts of science and all the religions of the ages had centers from which they originated. Christianity from Bethlehem, Mohammedanism from Mecca, Swedenborgianism from Sweden, and spiritualism from Hydesville, New York, the home of the Fox sisters and Hydesville Cottage. We welcome you to Hydesville Day, a celebration of the advent of modern spiritualism, a worldwide event.
We now move to our live portion where I have the privilege and honor of introducing our own president of the National Spiritualist Association of Churches, the Reverend Christine Crathatis. She has been our president and leader of the NSAC since October 2015. She is an ordained minister, a national spiritualist teacher, and a commissioned healer. She holds a Juris Doctor degree from the New York University and is a graduate of the Kennedy School of Bioethics at Georgetown University. She is currently the Vice President of the Morris Pratt Institute. She is a lawyer and also serves as a volunteer chaplain at the Alexandria Hospital. It is my great pleasure to welcome our president, the Reverend Christine Crithatis.
Good morning or good afternoon. Isn't it wonderful what spirit can do? Here we all are, gathered together from all over the world to celebrate Hydesville Day. 173 years ago, two young girls, children really, brought forth something that none of us in our wildest dreams could have imagined. Think about how you would feel if your daughter came in to breakfast and told you what had just taken place in her room. How would you have reacted to that shocking news? Many religions preach life after death, but only spiritualism proves it. It is real. The Summerland exists. We are a religion of conviction, not conversion. Today, we are excited to announce that there are now two great ways to support Hydesville Memorial Park. You can donate to the Day-to-Day Fox Preservation Fund, which is a cash-in, cash-out fund and supports year-round maintenance projects like repairs, general upkeep, as any structure or park would need. And as you know, in this challenging year, we have not had the usual opportunities to raise money for this critically needed work, or the now newly reestablished Hydesville Memorial Park Endowment Fund. The reestablished Hydesville Memorial Park Endowment Fund is made possible by a generous matching challenge gift made by a longtime NSAC member, Alice Robertson, from Spiritualist Desert Church in Las Vegas, Nevada. For every dollar donated, Alice will match that donation dollar for dollar in honor of Hydesville and the year modern American spiritualism began, up to $18,480. Sorry. But this challenge must be met by the NSAC no later than midnight on December 31st of this year. You may be asking, how is an endowment fund different? The goal of any endowment fund is to use only a percentage earned from the invested funds. With this reestablished endowment fund, operating dollars for Hydesville will be available forever. As this fund grows, eventually the separate maintenance fund will no longer be necessary. Please click on the link you see in the chat room and consider a donation to one of these funds. Thank you for being here today, for helping us to raise the funds needed to continue this important work for spiritualism. And thank you to Alice Robertson with her generosity, encouraging all of us to be part of the energy to continue the memory and understanding of the Fox family, the cottage and symbolism of Hydesville to humanity in the world. If you're not able to contribute directly, we thank you for your contribution of energy and your presence here today. And I would also like to extend my personal thanks and appreciation to all of the committee volunteers who made this day possible. Without your vision and input and energy and work, this would not have happened. And I give thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What a wonderful treat and surprise for all of us. I now would like to introduce to you Mavis Patilla. Mavis is one of the most experienced and knowledgeable mediums in the world today. She is in huge demand to share her thoughts and understanding of all things mediumistic and spiritual. She has dedicated herself to work with the people in the spirit world for over 50 years and firmly believes that true mediumship brings healing to both worlds. A former senior tutor at the famous Art Finlay College in UK, Mavis was trained under the watchful eye of her friend and mentor, Gordon Higginson, the Colossus of mediumship in the 20th century and president of the Spiritualist National Union. She also attributes a great deal of her knowledge to her partners in the spirit world. Over the years, Mavis has trained many well-known mediums around the world today. She believes that good theoretical understanding as well as practical skills are essential to achieve the level of communication the people in the spirit world so richly deserve. She teaches worldwide, both in person and online, many years before the current pandemic even needed it, and she inspires everyone with her philosophy, her down-to-earth manner, and her honesty and practical approach to this sacred work. She is a great orator, and anyone who listens to her is moved by her compassion, enthusiasm, and love for what she does. She holds firmly to the belief that love, like life, never dies. I'd like to welcome Mavis Patilla.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. It was absolutely wonderful, and to talk about what I believed in. But first and foremost, thank you so much to Jeanette and to the committee for actually having me here for National Spiritualist Association of Churches, and it's Christine, isn't it? I always get it wrong, but you know me well, Christine, because you're a dear friend of mine, so thank God for that. Okay, that's a blessing to know. Okay, I really would like to thank you, because it's always an honour and a privilege to actually speak at Hydesville, because it's so important to all of us, whether we're sensitives or whether we're mediums, whether we want to be in the public forum or whether we want to privately work. Nevertheless, it's very, very important that we remember we are blessed as spiritualists. We are really blessed. And we're blessed because we can gather together in open. We're open. Whereas if we look at the past when the Fox sisters were on the earth, oh my goodness, how would we have enjoyed it? I often think to myself when things are not going my way and I'm getting a little bit down and feeling sad or worried about something to do with my work. And I think to myself, what must it have been like for those children? How on earth did they cope with the pressure? Because we know that actually they did have to cope with the pressure. And it wasn't really until they actually got through talking to the peddler. I mean, fancy talking to the peddler. I wonder how frightened they were at the beginning. I think I was very frightened as a child, so obviously I put my own link on that. And I think to myself, goodness gracious, for them to have that intelligence, that innate feeling that they could start to tap out messages. How wonderful was that? And how we, you and I, have gained so many blessings from these children. And you know, as they grew up, we can't say that everything went swimmingly from them, because certainly we know that there was a lot of people that were against them. How did they cope with all that drama and all that trauma? So as we look at Hydesville and as we look at the Fox sisters, let's look at them as human beings, children growing up in that environment, and whether it was easy for them, I don't believe it was. But you know, we learn a great lesson, don't we, from all our pioneers of the past, not just one or two, but all our pioneers. You know, and I'm sure today everybody is going to be talking about the Fox sisters. So I'm not going to go into dates and numbers and figures and things like that, because that's not my scene. If you know me, I'm not like that really. I don't remember things very well. But I want to talk about everyone's experience in the past that has brought us up to this point, up to this day, up to this celebration, up to sitting here receiving the numerous, countless blessings from the Great Spirit, but from the spirit world. Because, you know, we have to look at that. Even before the Fox sisters, the Spirit was already spreading the word, wanting people to be free to think, to go forward and open their thinking, and to be aware of the Great Spirit, and to be aware of the world beyond this world. And of course, our famous one was Andrew Jackson Davis, and he really was working long before the Fox sisters. He had that contact with his people in the spirit world, and I'm sure you've read his books, because he was a very wonderful healer, prophet. He would prophesize. He was just a wonderful, wonderful spiritual man. But he did receive one extraordinary spiritual message, and I'm going to give you the date for this because I'm very clever. So, because Jean's given it to me. So, he received this spiritual message on March the 31st, in 1848. That's the same date as modern day spiritualism began. And when we look at that, listen to the message that he received clairaudiently. Brothers, the good work has begun. Behold, a living demonstration is born. But you know, that was the end of the message. And he was left wondering, how was this going to happen? What was going to take place? And if any of you are mediums and receive messages from the spirit world, you will understand how bemused you may have been at that point, because we don't always get all the answers, do we? We just sometimes just receive those wonderful, wonderful snippets that tell us that we can rely on the spirit world. The Fox sisters' experience at the cottage became very well known, and it really spread very, very fast. I suppose too fast for two little girls. Well, 3 girls, but 2 little girls in particular. And when they first demonstrated the communication between the two worlds, it was in Corinthian Hall in Rochester. I've been there. I haven't worked there, but I've been there. And that was the first public demonstration. And from then on, their lives changed. It spread across the USA. It was here in the UK. I feel as if I have an affinity, you know, with the Fox sisters. Not because they talk to me or anything like that, or I've seen them clairvoyantly, but because I was allowed the privilege, and it was an absolute privilege. You know, in my lifetime, I've had so many privileges bestowed upon me, such as today. But this one was, I was allowed to psychometrize the peddler's box. I was allowed to actually touch the box, imagine that, and link in soul to soul. And it gave me insight. How wonderful. And help from the girls, of course. it was just a beautiful, beautiful occasion for me. So I feel a little bit as if I can say I've got an affinity with them. Not my guides or my inspirers or anything like that, but nevertheless, I just think that they must have been remarkable girls, and they must have been remarkable women. And you know, as they went on through their lives, perhaps their lot wasn't easy, and perhaps they had many changes in their pathways, and that is very, very sad. But for any of you who are unfolding mediumship, to put it in the public arena, you know full well that criticism is going to be there. Not everybody is going to understand your work, or indeed applaud you. There will always be those people. Well, the Fox sisters had that in great abundance, and it's no wonder that we can actually pray for them and say, I'm sorry that mankind did those things. But you know, I've only got to go back a little way, 50 years. I don't really want to go there if I can help it. But you know, I worked with Gordon Higginson, and we would work at the town halls quite often in the UK in those times. But you know, we had problems even then where people would hold placards up and say, you can't suffer a witch to live, and she shouldn't be allowed to go on this platform. You know, and you, whether we like it or not, our human being side actually comes up. It just comes up. And we think to ourselves, how are we going to deal with this? And if you've got a pioneer in your mind that you can link to and relate to, you can think, well, they had it much worse than I'm having it with these placards. And that gives you confidence, and it gives you comfort, and it gives you support to keep on going, because you know, actually, you are speaking on behalf of the spirit world and the God source, and therefore we have to go with it. Another time I was in a church actually, and the church was full, and I'd spoken, and then when I came to do the demonstration of the communication between the two worlds, one whole row of actual Bible bashers stood up with their Bibles. Don't suffer this to go on. So you see, it's not that long ago since we were having those kind of problems, and we, you and I, must never let it happen again. I'm just going to read you something from the Pioneers of Freedom. This is from the Lyceum Manual. Now, the Lyceum Manual is the Spiritualist National Union, and of course that's where I grew up and learnt my philosophy and opened those kind of doors. So I just would like to read this, because I think that you and I, who are going forward, really have to take these words to heart. When we meet together without fear of interference, let us not forget that it is through the sufferings and the trials of those martyrs to liberty in the olden times, we are only unable to do so because of them. Let us consider some of the blessings we enjoy through their labours, and some of the things they have freed us from. Let us reverence the messengers of the new truth, such as Socrates, Buddha, Mohammed, Jesus, Swedenborg, the forerunners of modern day spiritualism. And I'm sure you know that they would have been round those two little girls when they started off on that journey. I'm certain they would have been there. As I'm certain some of these pioneers are with you. And I'm sure the Fox sisters will still be around, still be in Lilydale, still be in the cottage, still will want to visit the schoolhouse, but still will want to promote now the truth and the honesty and the integrity of mediums today, because we must move forward, and our truth must hold in high esteem for everyone, with integrity and moral duty we have. I believe, to the pioneers of old and to two little girls. We must condemn fraudulent mediums, and we must help those people with poor quality mediumship, that they may strive for higher standards. Again, I want to go back to those two little girls and how they had to strive and strive and strive to please everyone. Well, we don't need to please everyone. We only need to please God and the spirit world. Aren't we blessed, you and I? Because that's what we're doing. We're serving the God source, the discarnate and the incarnate, giving a voice to those in the unseen world, a voice that says, I love you, I love you, I love you. Or giving us perhaps a little bit of a nudge to take us forward, perhaps to think a little bit differently than we did in the past. Honesty and dignity the spirit world deserve from us. They deserve communication to be sacred, because it's sacred to them. And always remember, it may seem difficult for you and I to work, but what was it like for those two little girls? When we look at that, of course we can go on with our shoulders back and our chins held high. In the Lyceum, and again I'm taking it out of the Spiritualist National Union Lyceum book, and it says, when we acknowledge the heroism of our brothers in the past, let us strive to be worthy of them and to follow in their footsteps. So enjoy the day and remember these important words. There is no death. From the Spiritualist National Hymn Book, I'd like to just leave you with these thoughts. I think it should be our anthem actually. It's called There Is No Death. There is no death. Tell out the mighty message. There is no death. Go tell it far and wide. What men call death is but a simple crossing over life's river to the other side. There is no death. Oh, blessed words of comfort, to lighten sorrow's darkening clouds o'erhead, with gentle whisper when our tears are falling, to tell us our loved ones are not dead. There is no death, for just across the border we soon shall meet our loved ones face to face, with words of love and memory unbroken. We hold communion in that happy place. There is no death. The spirit world around us proclaims this joyful news to sons of earth. When time shall bring the soul's emancipation, call it not death, but rather second birth. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you. Thank you.
Much for those inspirational words. Next, I'd like to introduce another dear friend of the NSAC, Robin Hodson. Robin is the president of the International Spiritualist Federation and president of Seaford Spirit and Independent Spiritualist Center. He is an English medium with over 30 years' experience serving spiritualist churches and centers, both in Britain and America, Canada, Finland, Iceland, Australia, and Sweden. In addition to the church and the public platform presentations of mediumship, Robin is an experienced tutor in various forms of mediumship. His main area of interest is trance and physical mediumship, and he has been running physical circles for over 25 years. A friend, helper, and educator to all of us here in the NSAC, I'd like to introduce you to the president of the ISF, Robin Hodson.
Stacey, thank you. First of all, good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever in the world you join this wonderful event from. It really is a very special event, and it's lovely to see so many faces, many of whom I've met on my travels, but even better that there are some that I have yet to meet. The commonality between us, despite the geographical difference, is that we are spiritualists. What does that mean? Hudson Tuttle, an investigator, author and supporter of spiritualism in its early years, once said that fundamentally, anyone who accepted the possibility of communication between spirit and man is a spiritualist, whatever other difference they might have. I'm sure we can all fall into that category. We are that group of people around the world that support and live according to the philosophy of spiritualism. Today we mark an especially important day, perhaps the most important day because it was the birth of modern spiritualism. Before the 31st of March 1848, there were no spiritualists. The term didn't exist. The philosophy was not yet formulated. You could say we hadn't been invented yet. Today we recall and remember the beginning of physical phenomena, the basis of communication brought about by the focus by two young sisters of only 9 and 11. And their family, and we must remember their family were important in this process. That family were hurled from their humble, secure life into a very different world. Their simple games brought truth. Their childlike antics brought a clarity to the world, which stands as strong today as it did then. Their minds were far away from bringing any truth to the world and couldn't have been further away from religion. It was, after all, a simple tapping game. The whole family were involved, part of uncharted territory. And over the following days and weeks, the enormity of the situation was to build, resulting in many flocking to their house. And according to the reports, not only always to support their findings. Can you imagine two young girls from a small town in Hydesville telling the world that they had something that would change mankind? We've heard of the phenomena, the stories of the rapping, the eventual first ever demonstration of communication at the Corinthian Halls in Rochester. But today I want to take a step away from those often shared stories in order to honour the strength and fortitude that family showed. Can you imagine for a moment two young girls and how they were received by the orthodox religions of the time? Can you imagine the prejudice that they were subjected to in proclaiming that they had found this truth? That they were able to demonstrate and provide evidence that the established religions, and indeed scientists, were unable or unwilling to seek. The whole family must have been under constant attack from those who saw spiritualism as a threat to their own belief, not only from their own community, but also from further afield. Can you imagine living in that atmosphere? But yet they carried on, swept along by the frantic interest in their findings. The family was wrenched from their quiet, sedate life into what would be known today as probably a media circus. Family split up, daughters being separated, and the family seemingly broken up. But the truth that was spiritualism continued to build to the point that it was said to have crossed across the United States of America faster than the gold rush. This was only because of their fortitude, their willingness and strength to stand up for what they believed. Why is their struggle important, you might ask? It's history. It's all in the past. We owe a debt of gratitude to the pioneers in recognition of that very struggle. We are fortunate. We live in enlightened times. Thankfully, a period of history when freedom of belief and worship is statute. And yet we still see prejudice from others who don't accept or are challenged by our way. When we are challenged next, and I'm sure we will be, Let's put it into perspective and think and compare with the mountain that the Fox family had to climb. We have strength in spiritualism worldwide, supported by those organizations and individuals. But let us honor the past by showing our strength to the future. Arthur Conan Doyle, a great supporter and investigator of spiritualism, said when referring to spiritualism that, in his opinion, there have only been three great ideas that have come to the human race. The first is the idea of the one great central power, which is God. The second is the idea that gentleness, unselfishness, virtue are greater things than violence, selfishness, and vice. And the third is the one to which we bear witness, that death is not the obstacle it was once thought to be. I add my debt of gratitude to the Fox family for remaining strong and delivering that third message, a message for all mankind. Death is not the obstacle that it is thought to be, and the communication between the two realms evidences and supports that. Perhaps the biggest duty we have is to the future, is to what the future holds and what the future can bring, based on that foundation in that little cottage in 1848. Let us look forward to the future of spiritualism, whatever development that time, technology, and worldly conditions can bring. We all know that this past year has brought some changes. This event itself perhaps would not have occurred if it were not for worldly conditions. But we must look forward to the future of spiritualism with the same determination, strength, and drive that Hydesville family showed. And then, perhaps, spiritualism will be there for those who seek to follow in our footsteps. And that is our duty, that we will nurture this truth, nurture this knowledge, and promote it with strength, truth, and humility, that those who seek in the future will find its ways and carry the banner far beyond our years. So might I just say, let us enjoy this very special day. May I wish each of you a happy, joyous Hydesville Day. Let's celebrate this truth, this commonality that brings us together. Thank you.